New moon, welcome to Midnight Shadows. Today, we delve into a chilling phenomenon, sleep paralysis. Imagine lying in bed, fully awake and aware, yet your body remains completely still. Those moments are terrifying, aren't they? Many have experienced the unsettling sensation of being watched, feeling as if an unwelcome presence lurks nearby. Countless reports describe shadowy figures appearing in the dark, often an old woman or a dark silhouette wearing a fedora with cold, piercing eyes staring back at them. These entities don't just linger in the shadows. They sometimes climb onto the bed, their menacing presence suffocating as they attempt to choke the helpless victim. Prepare yourself, for today's story will plunge you into the eerie world of those lurking shadows that haunt our sleep. Candle, music. One of the strangest experiences I have covered since taking an interest in some of the darker corners of our world is that of sleep paralysis. The very phenomenon is, in itself, terrifying. Our minds getting stuck in a sort of halfway stage between sleep and waking. In that midway point, we realize we are conscious in our beds, but for some reason, we can't move. It's a very real and very common experience that many of us encounter, but it sometimes doesn't just stop there. Many people awaken unable to move and suddenly get the feeling that they are not alone. Sometimes it is just a feeling. Then slowly, that feeling fades and we start to regain the ability to move. Other times, people see something. It could just be the vague outline of a person, a featureless shadow observing them from the darkened corner of the room, or in some cases, it can become more unsettling than that. The shadow might start to move towards us, or maybe it isn't a shadow at all. In many incidents, this shadowy figure is often described as wearing a fedora-style hat, a common occurrence, but we'll get into that in another entry. Other times, it is a woman, an old witch-like woman, who stalks towards us as we lie helpless in our beds. Sometimes, people regain their ability to move, and the woman simply fades out of existence, but other times, she gets closer and closer until she is right on top of you. But she doesn't stop there. She climbs onto the bed, straddles her legs over your torso, pushing down with a force that shouldn't be possible for such a frail old woman. And that is when she begins to smile. You realize her hands are starting to wrap around your neck. That is when you realize those hands are getting tighter. That is when you realize this woman, or whatever she is, wants to kill you. Welcome to the tape library. I've got a bit of a different episode for you tonight. Think of it as a bonus before we return to our regularly scheduled broadcasting very soon. About a year ago, I put out an episode on the old hag and sleep paralysis as a whole. I'd strongly recommend checking that one out if you haven't already. I've included a link in the description. Over the past 12 months, because of that episode, I have received a number of stories from people who have experienced similar encounters. Some are simple examples of sleep paralysis, but others are so vivid and terrifying that it makes you question, do we sometimes attribute sleep paralysis to phenomena that could be something else? Some encounters are just flat-out strange in their descriptions. Others made my blood run cold. In this episode, I'll be reading you these responses I have been sent. Some are single-sentence encounters. Others are more detailed. If you have sent me an encounter and I haven't included it here, I'm sorry, I couldn't fit them all in. And I will be honest, some of you are getting far too sexual with your sleep paralysis demons. On that note, if you have a paranormal encounter of any kind, then please do feel free to get in touch. You can find ways to contact me through the description, or if you are on YouTube, you can simply leave a comment. If you want to hear more of these short personal encounters, then please do let me know in the comments below. The longer form episodes take a lot of research, and I'm currently deep into it on the next couple of episodes. So it's always nice to drop these slightly more casual episodes from time to time. Okay, let's get into it. Here are your personal encounters with sleep paralysis demons. Music. About a month ago, June 7th, I almost died. My veins collapsed, and I had a blood clot. This might be too much information, but please bear with me. The doctors were afraid it might have been a miscarriage because of where it was coming from. Thankfully, they tested, and it wasn't. I had a major fever and cold sweat. The doctor told my fiancée that had we not arrived in the emergency room when we did, I would have died that day at 35 years old. For a week and a half before this happened, I saw the hag. Our bed faces a doorway that leads to a downstairs workout room. We live with my grandparents in the finished basement. My fiancé was at work. He works nights, and I've had sleep paralysis a few times this year for the first time in my life, and it was terrifying. Well, as I said, for a week before almost losing my life, I saw a haggard old woman cloaked in the doorway that faces my bed. She never sat on my chest or choked me, but she did get beside my bed the night before June 7th. It's always between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. I've seen her 2 more times since last month, but so far, nothing's happened again. Thankfully, everyone is saying that me living is like I'm a phoenix, like the tattoo on my wrist, but I honestly have never felt more like a zombie since it happened. The PTSD has mostly gone away. I can go to the bathroom again without having flashbacks, but emotionally, I feel like the Walking Dead. Okay, I had to stop the video since I had the exact same experience. I've had sleep paralysis a couple of times before, but the one where the old woman was smiling and laughing at me while strangling me, sitting across my chest, hands on my throat, and I couldn't scream shakes me to my core. I remember the exact details of the old woman on me, standing at the edge of my bed, crawling on top of me with a sinister smile. Her hair was curly and long, and it surrounded my face with super pale skin and darkened eyes, like she was dead. As she was bending over, strangling me, I remember reaching up for my throat, but being unable to move my arms. I was screaming in horror as this old woman was staring into my soul as she tried to take it from me. All I remember telling myself in that moment is, wake up, wake up, move now. You're going to die. My boyfriend at the time was sleeping next to me, and he said he woke up to me screaming at the top of my lungs with my eyes open. I still remember the evil laugh she emitted in my room, and I'm not sure how I ended up waking up. I don't remember if my boyfriend shook me or if I woke myself up, but I remember bawling, crying at the experience. Listening to Not Even 4 minutes of this video has me thinking, who else has been through the same thing, and how horrifying it really is to know I am not the only one, and it was not just a dream. I've had episodes of sleep paralysis all my life. Most of the time, I wake up but can't open my eyes, and the TV is still on and seems insanely loud. I keep hoping someone will turn it down so I can go back to sleep, but only once did it scare me. I was traveling for work and in some creepy hotel in St. Louis. The whole hotel made me uneasy. It was just creepy in an ominous way. I was sleeping and woke up on my stomach with a feeling that someone was sitting on my back. I couldn't move but could see the alarm clock, my cell, and the light coming into the room from under the door. There was an overwhelming feeling of evil and dread in the room. I've never been that scared. I kept thinking if I could grab my phone and call my mom, everything would be okay. All of a sudden, the feeling on my back shot into my lower back and then traveled up towards my head and down to my feet at the same time. At that point, I could move. I was there for a week for work, and nothing happened again in the room, but I barely slept the rest of the week and was always uneasy in the hotel. In my late teens, when this experience occurred several times, I would smell a weight on my body, unable to move, and feel a sense of evil. Once, it was so terrifying that I left my body and was looking down on myself and my brother. I felt a fear that if I went out the window, I wouldn't return to my body. After that, I would pray whenever I sensed her appearance, and she eventually let me be. If you think she or they only appeared during sleep paralysis or are merely a hallucination, you are unfortunately very wrong. However, sleep paralysis is a convenient entry point, and they use it to gain access to the person. I've had sleep paralysis a few times in my life, but the figure that appeared to me was not the hag. It looked more like a ringwraith from Lord of the Rings. The experiences I had shook me to my core each time. I ended up doing a deep dive on sleep paralysis and lucid dreaming, and figured out a way to wake myself up when this occurs. To this day, I still have bouts from time to time where this happens, and you can feel it coming on. But if you train yourself to recognize the signs, you can take control and wake up. I've had a dream where I was in a room, and in the middle of the room, I saw an old lady behind her. I wanted to see her face, so as I walked past her, I noticed she was smiling. I told her, "In the name of Jesus, you cannot touch me." Her smile faded and became angry, and her eyes turned pure white. It seemed as though she wanted to grab me but couldn't, and then I woke up. It was creepy. I've had this happen. I woke up to an old lady with long dark hair sitting on my chest and holding me by my neck. She was screaming in my face. I remember how scary she looked. I couldn't move. I remember saying in my head, "You can't hurt me." And I looked away from her and went back to sleep. From that day, I've always slept on my belly. I don't want to experience that again. I wasn't consciously aware that I was sleeping on my belly after this event until 2 years later. Still, 5 years later, I can't sleep on my back or side. I miss sleeping on my side and back. It only happened once to me. I was camping at a fairground in Montana for a harvest job. There were dozens of traveling punks camping there. I had passed out on my back with my boots on in my tent. There were people outside of my tent being loud. I was still in my dream when I became lucid and consciously knew I was in a tent, but once I became lucid, I realized I could not move. Panic set in, and at that moment, she jumped on my chest, grabbing my neck. I was able to sit up, and I was out of it. The experience was very quick. It was a matter of seconds. I got up and walked around in the dark. To my surprise, the northern lights were blazing. This was before I'd ever heard of shadow people. At the time, I was convinced it was a demon that had come in with some of the less savory travelers in the camp. Every time I encounter her, she tries to actually kill me. She even affects my dreams. Just 17 minutes ago, I was dreaming that I was about to discover Atlantis, but my ears started to vibrate, and I heard a distorted woman's voice telling me to turn back. But I couldn't because I had no control over my dream. When I got to the lost city, my ears started to vibrate like crazy. Then, I woke up to sleep paralysis immediately and heard a distorted woman scream so loud. Then the old hag jumped and tried to suffocate me. I saw that my arms couldn't move, but they felt like they could move. So I tried to fight back and woke up. I tried to go back to sleep, but my ears kept vibrating more violently each time, and I heard the old hag nearby, so I'm refusing to sleep right now. When I was 6, an old lady popped her head out of my Care Bear sleeping bag and breathed the heaviest breath, like she'd been hiding under there next to me the whole time. Music scary. When I was 14, I had been on the phone. I was on the phone with my girlfriend when I fell asleep. This was the one and only visit I had from the old hag. I swear she was trying to kill me. It started with lightning strikes in the distance. The brief flash of light woke me. I could feel the room darken as I tried moving, and the sudden realization that I was stuck began to sink in. It was scary at first, until I looked down at my body and saw her staring at me from the door by the foot of the couch I was sleeping on. It was unmistakable. She was a real person, an old lady with a long nose, long white hair, dark sunken eyes, and a blackened smile. Her eyes were piercing, like I was her prey. She slowly started approaching me, her limbs grossly longer than they initially appeared. With a sudden flash of more lightning, I could see her clearly. I stand by this. No matter what anyone tells me, that was real. She crawled from the foot of my bed onto my chest. Every place she touched felt cold, and sharp pain rushed through me. She proceeded to grab my throat and started choking me. That's when I realized that no matter what I did, I couldn't breathe. Fear started filling me as I tried screaming, but nothing came out. Her fingers dug deeper into my throat, and rage began to fill me. I realized that if I didn't fight, I would die. I just got angrier and angrier that this was how I was going to die. Finally, I was able to move, and when I woke up, I found that I was actually choking on my saliva. It was still a terrifying experience. I've had sleep paralysis about 3 times throughout my life. The first time was like a dream, but it was the scariest for sure. I woke up and couldn't move. seeing a beautiful pale naked woman with black hair emerging from my bedroom closet and slowly making her way on top of me. She spoke to me and said her name was Lilith and that she wanted my body. I started, feeling panicky, and tried to wrestle out of paralysis while she straddled me. I was able to wake up, and it stuck with me the next day at school. Throughout the day, I decided to look up the name she spoke to me, which I had no prior knowledge of in high school, and it terrified me to the core. Lilith is a succubus, a female demon that preys on young men in their sleep. I'm 30 now, and it still scares me. I remember in high school, I had my first experience with sleep paralysis. I was lying flat on my back, and she was walking towards me very slowly. I was terrified, trying to move, but I couldn't. The old hag has visited me a few times now while I'm wide awake. I've closed my eyes to ignore her, but I can still see her as if my eyes were still open. I've heard her saying things that I can't quite make out other than, "I know you can hear me," and she knows my name. I felt hands pushing down on me through the duvet, as though I was being pushed from my bed, albeit extremely slowly, like millimeters at a time. My experience involved being thrown around my room at night during my teens, but now when it happens, it's a feeling of being dragged off the bed into an abyss. When I was young, no more than 6, I awoke and felt something sitting on my leg. I couldn't move them, and then realized I couldn't move anything. I looked down and could see an impression, as though someone was sitting there. All of a sudden, I could move again. I was freaked out but not scared. I actually told my mom that I thought God came and sat on me. Thankfully, I never had another experience like that. I was in a dream within a dream, and she came to me, both of them, and was there when I woke up. Last week, I woke up from a very peaceful dream that was super nice and normal, and all of a sudden, I heard a loud creaking noise, like the sound of some plastic container tumbling in the wind on concrete, but very loud. I felt a very scary sensation, like someone was about to come into my bedroom and kill me. I was lying in bed with my boyfriend when my eyes suddenly opened, but I couldn't move my head or anything. I could see out of the corner of my eyes, and my bedroom door was wide open, which is normal, but my room had a weird red tint to it. I couldn't move, I couldn't speak, and I couldn't yell. It wasn't complete silence, but it felt like I was whispering, as if my voice was gone from screaming or something. It was just very scratchy. When I realized I couldn't yell for my boyfriend, who was laying right next to me, I tried to turn my head to look at him. At the time, I thought I was turning my own head, but I couldn't move anything at all. I tried everything in my body to move my arm and smack him on the back, but it didn't wake him up. The only noise loud enough in the room was my breathing. So I started breathing harder and harder, as hard as I could, until he finally woke up. He pulled me up so that I was sitting in bed, and as soon as I was upright, I was able to push myself back against the headboard, finally able to see my whole bedroom. A couple of seconds later, I woke up properly and looked around my bedroom. I leaned over my bed, and out of nowhere, my boyfriend asked me, "Are you okay?" I told him the whole thing. If you have your own encounters, please feel free to share them below. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, then please like the video. Leaving a comment is a brilliant way to support the channel for free. It really helps with the algorithm. And so, we have delved into the eerie phenomenon of sleep paralysis and the chilling entities that accompany it. These stories don't end here. They linger in the shadows, waiting to be told. If you've ever experienced something similar, we invite you to share your story with us in the comments below. We're eager to continue exploring these haunting occurrences together. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Midnight Shadows so you won't miss any spine-tingling tales in the future. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.